Hello Year 6 and welcome to your final video of the Fly Me Home book, and we are on chapter 22. Okay, so Lulu has just been into the old man's house and watched him get the ball of moss and stop the storm. So maybe we are going to start to get some answers. There we are. The old man clapped his hands together delightedly and the ball of moss fell to the ground, discarded. Better, dog? You stopped the storm. The words fell from my mouth. I did, the old man said, looking right at me, his twinkling eyes as though he had known that I'd been standing there all along. That's not all I can do, is it, dog? But you know that already, don't you? The last question he directed at me. His eyes reminded me of two very shiny conkers. They made brown seem like the best colour in the world. Rich and bright and warm, but mysterious. Suddenly, I felt a glow, a warmth inside me. I knew something that I hadn't known just moments before. The friend I didn't know. The friend who had sent me the powers when I needed them most. My friend was standing right in front of me, picking off bits of moss and tasting the odd bit, and then wrinkling his nose in disgust. You left me those. Of course, I left you those wonders. Wonders? Come on, dog, something to settle your nines, I think. The old man disappeared into the kitchen, and the dog stood up and stretched out, extending each leg. He was absolutely huge. When I first saw him out in the street, I'd refused to leave the house. Now the dog loped up to me and bent his head. I reached out to stroke him, and only then did he leave the room and follow the old man to the kitchen. Splendidly-o, I heard the man shout loudly. They returned to the sitting room, the old man ducking round the branches hanging from the ceiling, moving this way and that, as though walking through a maze. He began to collect the things he pulled out, staring at each piece intently, and then stuffing it away in nooks and crannies in every part of the room. There was a system here, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you what it was. Dog does not like storms, the old man said. Maybe to himself, maybe to me, maybe to his dog. What's your dog's name? I asked. Dog, he exclaimed, as though it was completely obvious, and he couldn't believe I didn't know. Hey, dog, I said, and the dog stretched out at my feet, with his nose resting on my shoe. The old man was sorting pine cones into different sizes and shapes. Among them I spotted one similar to the one I'd found. Why did you leave me those things? I asked him. He was ignoring me again. He just carried on making his piles, and I thought he wasn't going to answer. But then he spoke. Why do we need anything? Because we need to. Because someone else needs us to. Heads, shoulders, needs, and toes. Needs and toes. Just then I heard footsteps outside. Footsteps that flew and danced over the ground. Footsteps that I knew. It was Tiber returning at last. Home time, the old man said. But when I looked at him, he was tipping the piles of cones into different sized glass jars, screwing the lids on tightly, and not paying me any attention at all. I dithered. I knew I had to go, but I didn't want to. Can I come back on another day? Can I ask you about... I told you, the old man said, a little irritably now. Heads, shoulders, needs and toes. If you need to come back, then... He didn't finish his sentence, as though he had run out of patience with it. I turned away from him and his dog and his collection of things, the overturned boxes and the flickering glow of the nightlights hanging overhead. Outside I found Tiber opening our front door. His eyes widened when he saw me. What are you doing out here? He demanded, making me forget for a moment that he was the one who'd left me alone all night. I felt guilty for being outside. I opened my mouth to object, but then Tiber said, I'll keep it from Mum, just this once. She would be so mad if she knew that you had been out at this time of night. So I didn't tell him anything, and I didn't find out where he'd been either. And I certainly didn't tell him about the old man and the dog from next door. I didn't tell him how I'd seen the old man stop a storm. So looking forward to us being back into class together and reading it all together. Okay, see you Monday, everybody.